Chapter 4, Part 2. Max regretted messing with Allison's map. She needed another win, another way to feel useful, and it shouldn't involve really dangerous things. So, he just altered the map to make them come out at Mr. Hatch's ranch. She could be a hero saving the sheep and get some confidence back. But everything had gone wrong, and Allison became a real hero when she'd saved him from falling backward into a cave and being buried under sheep. Max's mom was taking no prisoners now. This situation wasn't nearly as bad as dumping lava and skeletons into the garden, but apparently any mistake you make after lava and skeletons is a very bad mistake, Max thought bitterly. Luckily, after their last adventure, he had thought to remove his secret from the hiding place in the workshop. Since he was in charge of repairing the garden, he had buried it underneath some pumpkins he'd planted. That turned out to be a brilliant idea, since this time Max's mom found the workshop. She took their tools, their workbench, their furnace, and began methodically tearing down Allison's tower, block by block. Allison had asked tearfully if she was being kicked out, and Max's mom stopped raging and said calmly, "Of course not, dear. Very little could make me that angry. You will sleep in Max's room for now." She went back to work tearing down the tower. "My room is pretty small, Mom," Max ventured. "Why don't we both move into the tower?" His mom fixed him with such a glare that he stopped talking. True to her word, she put a bed in Max's bedroom, opposite his own, and then began building a wall down the center of the room. She put a door in her own bedroom wall so Allison could get in and out, and so Allison couldn't sneak around at night without going past her. "Be good for a week," she said through the open door as Max sat on his bed, "and I'll give you two a window to talk through. Be good for a month, and you'll get a door. Show me you're trustworthy for a year, and the wall will go away. 2 years, and I might rebuild the tower." A year. 2 years. So much could happen in that time. He might die of boredom. But as he flopped back onto his bed, he thought that he'd learned his lesson. Mom was not on board with mining behind the house. He caught Allison at the breakfast table next morning, tapping her fingers, and he realized she was counting blocks in her head. His mom was at the furnace, cooking breakfast, her back to them. "What are you planning on doing? You're not going in there again, are you?" he whispered. "I have to," she said. "You'd get us thrown into a cage. Just wait a while to let her cool down. What's so important that you're getting right back down to making her mad?" Allison's face flushed. "I'm making armor. I want to make a set of really, really good armor." "What?" Max thought the goal was a cool one, but not enough to endanger them and risk his mother's wrath. "Why do you have to do that? Why is it so important? Is it for you?" She shook her head, and he was shocked to see her eyes fill with tears. He gave a panicked look at his mom's back, and then leaned closer. "What did I say? What's wrong?" "It's for her." "For who?" Max asked, frowning. Allison glanced at his mom. "Her." A tear dripped down on her face. "I can't lose another parent, Max. I owe her everything. I want her to be safe when she's traveling around all alone. If I get better at crafting, I can give her a set of armor to wear when she goes into town, and that can thank her for taking care of me." Max wanted to take her hand and comfort her. He wanted to shout at her that he was fairly certain that his mom would rather Allison just be a regular safe kid and not endanger her life to protect his mom from an imagined threat. He wanted to sit back and just be confused that this weird thing was driving his rules-abiding friend into a life of disobedience, and he realized that they had more in common than he thought. What he did do was pass her his napkin so she could wipe her tears. His mom turned around and brought a plate of eggs to the table. "Allison, what's wrong?" she asked, spying Allison wiping her eyes. "The thing that's usually wrong," she said, smiling slightly. "Sometimes it just hits me." Max's mom leaned over and hugged her, which only made her cry harder. Allison was strangely quiet for the next few weeks of their punishment, nearly back to how she was when she first moved in, grief-stricken and alone. Max wished he could talk to her privately, but his mom kept one of them with her at all times. She took Allison with her to help retrieve Mr. Hatch's sheep and to fix the holes in his farm. She took Max with her to the village, leaving Allison and Francine at home and making him carry her pack, meaning he couldn't carry his own. He got to see his dad and the building project he was working on, but this time around, he found that visiting his dad wasn't a treat, since he was even angrier than Mom had been. He asked Allison if she had been minding during these times alone, but she shook her head. Their punishment included Allison helping Max's mom plan the details of her upcoming projects, while Max grudgingly helped his mom with her designs. They were busy, that was for sure, but they were also miserable. After 1 week, true to her word, Max's mom came in with a pickaxe, one of Allison's fine iron ones, Max noticed, and knocked a hole in the wall between them. She left a mess for them to clean up, but they were finally allowed to talk in private. "I've got an idea," Max said, standing by the window and looking through to Allison lying with her back to him and on the bed. "What is it?" she said flatly, rolling over and staring at the ceiling. "I need to get back to making things. I just need to." "I think she'll be okay, Allie. You remember how she took care of that skeleton?" "What's your idea?" she asked, ignoring him. "Does it include waiting till she stops being mad?" She's already over it," he said, waving off the concern. He was too excited to worry about anything right now. "I have something I want to show you." Allison tucked her knees to her chin, rolling herself into a tiny ball. "No, Max, she's definitely not over it. She won't forget what we did to her garden, and the next time we mess up, she'll remember the sheep and the garden. We have to be more careful." "You're right, there. But I'm not talking about mining, or even crafting," he said. He hesitated a moment, then slid a book into the window, resting it in the cavity of the missing block. "I'm talking about so much more." That, at least, got her attention. Max passed his precious find through the window reverently, as if it were breakable. The journal was bound in cracked brown leather. A rough circle with 2 dots in the center was burned into the cover, and the whole thing looked handmade. Allison grabbed it and opened it to a random page. It was filled with scribbles having to do with potion recipes the author had experimented with. "Where did you get this?" she asked, running her finger over the page and squinting at some crossed-out parts. "I found it in a cabin," he said. "Remember when you asked where I got the obsidian to fix your sheep pen?" She nodded, still studying the messy writing. "The obsidian wasn't the only thing I found." She flipped another page carefully. "There's a lot crossed out here. Or just missing. I figure it's a book of experiments. Some of them didn't work." Allison flipped back to the recipe for the water-breathing potion. "See, this one says it's for water breathing, but the recipe listed here isn't one I've ever seen before. I don't know all the uses for fermented spider eyes, but I do know that they aren't used for a lot of beneficial spells or potions." Max leaned as far as she could through the hole in the wall, frowning. "I didn't know that." She raised an eyebrow. "Max, that was in our basic potions class. How could you not be interested in enchanting and brewing and not know that?" "That was a long time ago, and it was really boring," he said defensively. "And besides, the book still has a lot of cool stuff in it regardless. Keep reading." "Okay, so, there are some potions in here that look like they work, and some detailed enchanting information. Oh, this is good." Max made himself be quiet while she read, only bouncing slightly as he waited. He was hoping she would find the best part before he had to point it out, but she stayed on an enchanting page, which talked about weapons and armor. "Max, do you realize that with this book, I could make armor and you could enchant it? We could enchant weapons." Her voice was starting to get that curious excitement that he always knew came before she agreed to one of his schemes. "I know," he said, "but keep looking. It gets better." "What is better than an enchanted sword?" she asked, but kept turning the pages. "An enchanted helmet," she muttered to herself as she read. Max waited for her to get closer to the back of the book to find the sketch. The earlier pages had been sloppy and haphazard, but this page looked like an entirely different person had written it. The script was small, precise, with clear measurements and a detailed sketch of a large rectangle surrounded by cubes of obsidian. In the center of the rectangle was a flaming bowl. The rectangle had been filled in with swirls. He couldn't see beyond the structure, even though it didn't look like it contained any blocks. Below the sketch were 3 words. She looked up at Max. "Is this for real?" "There's only one way to find out," he said, grinning widely. Allison looked back down at the book and ran her finger over the words. Portal to Nether.